control. So I'll be sharing my screen. I'll just share my screen. So what is role-based access control? Role-based access control, the short form of role-based access control is RBAC, which is RBAC, RBAC. So that's the short form of role-based access control. Let me just bring my paint tool so that I'll just use the paint tool to explain. So let me just note this. Let me search for paint. So we're talking about RBAC rather, and RBAC means role-based access control. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So let's just stay tuned. So we'll be talking about RBAC. So let me increase the font size so it will be bold. Let me make it 2048. So this is what we'll be talking about today. We'll be talking about role-based access control in Azure. So role-based access control now is a way of managing who can do what in a system. If you don't give roles, it means that automatically there won't be any way for you to manage who can do what in a system. So I'm going to be giving an example of how role-based access control work in a scenario like this. Let's use a library as an example. Library is a place where people go to read, right? Where people can go to read and study for their exams, do a lot of things. But we have specific rules of people that use the library. So an example of those rules in terms of library is like we have visitors card. So if you have a visitors card and you are going to the library with your visitors card, you can only read books, but you cannot take them home. So as a student, if you go to the library, most times you can read book, but you can't take them home. Now we're using library as an example. Library. So we're using library as an example. So imagine your library, imagine a library like an Azure resource. So this library now, we are looking at it like a virtual machine. A virtual machine is a resource in Azure. So we are just trying to define what you can do in the library. Let's now come down. Let's look at roles that you can have in a library. So if we say roles, so under the roles, the next type of role that we can have with regards in a library setting is visitors card. So this visitors card now, if you are going to a library and you have a visitors card, normally if you're a student, in your student ID card does not give you access to the library. You need a library ID card before you can access the library. Then this visitors card now is just like that student card. So once you have this card, it lets you read books, but not take home. So I'm trying to explain what role-based access control using a library as an example here. So I'll reduce the font size of this so that at least we can accommodate more words. So you can't take home. Visitors card lets you read books but not take home. Let's look at another rule again that you can have in a library setting. So the next rule is member card. So we are talking about role-based access control. I'm using library as an example. So for member card now, member card lets you read book and borrow book. So if I bring it down again, let's come here. Let me reduce it. Hope we are gaining value from the explanation. So member card now, you can read books, you can take books home, you can do a lot of things with the book, but you are going to return it. So as the word implies, you are giving rules based on what the person can do in the library. So this library now, if you want to go to this library and you have visitors card, it lets you read book, but you can't take it home. But if you have members card, it lets you read the book and borrow the book, meaning that you can take the book home. This is rules as it relates to library. While in Microsoft Azure now, this library now will now change to a virtual machine. Virtual machine. Virtual machine. In this virtual machine now, I can tell key, I want this person to be a virtual machine contributor. So the rule now for virtual machine will now be different. You know, for library, you have visitors card that can give you access to take books, to read books, but you can't take it home. While for members, it lets you read book, but you can't take them home. So let's use an illustration I want to use an illustration to explain something to us. So let me just reduce this and move it up. So now let's just expand. So now I want us to use this illustration to explain how role-based access control is in Azure. So role-based access control now, let's not forget, it's a way of managing who can do what in a system. So instead of giving people permission directly, so you can give them permission using role-based access control, whereby you can create a rule like the person is going to be a reader, the person is going to be either the person is going to be a reader, or the person is going to be a contributor, or the person is going to be an admin, which we are going to explain. Then in those rules, you now put permission. Okay, this person can do this. This person can read files. This person can delete. This person cannot delete. This person can assign users to a group. This person can give people permission. That is just an example of role-based access control. It's a way of managing who can do what in a system like Microsoft Azure. So that was why I gave an example of a library, whereby library, everybody have access to the library, but the access you have differs. Somebody that has a librarian card, a librarian is more or less like the head of the library. The person can do a lot of things in the library. So in terms of Azure now, the librarian is the owner. Because as a owner of an Azure subscription, you can do and undo. You can give anybody contributor access. You can give anybody reader access because you are the owner. So a librarian here is the owner. Why a visitor? A visitor is more or less like somebody that just wants to come to the library. So you can only read books, but you can't take book home. A member, you can read and borrow book home. So I'm going to be using a small illustration to explain how role-based access control work in Microsoft Azure. So let me just use pencil to draw. So permits me, I may not draw very well, but let me just see. Let me use this. Let me use this to draw. Let me get the brush. Let me use this one. So now I want to design I want to design something. So here now, this is a resource. I'm just defining it. This is a resource. We have a resource here. This is the resource. So now I'm going to be typing. Let me type. Let me just type here. This is a resource. So it could be, let me just say this is a resource group. Yeah. So this is a resource group now. Then in this resource group, we have roles that I want to give in this resource group. So I'll just do it like this. Bring this one down. So there are 3 rows that I want to give in this resource group. Then these 3 rows, one of the row is reader. So let me just write reader here. Reader. So reader is one of the rows I want to give in this resource group. Then the next one I want to give is contributor. So I'll just come here. Contributor. So the third one now is going to be owner. So I'll just come here, specify owner here, owner. So in a library setting now, so this is the library. Then the reader now here is somebody that has a visitor's card that can just read but cannot take book home. A contributor is somebody that you can read and you can do other things. While an owner, the owner now is like the librarian, the original person that has the environment. So this is the owner. of this resource group. So the owner of this resource group, now you have the right to make anybody contributor and make anybody reader. But somebody that is a contributor, you cannot make another person an owner because you are not the owner of this. You are not the owner in the resource group. So there's no way you can make another person contributor. So this is role-based access control. Let's say, for instance, now I have staffs that work with me. So this person now, role-based access control, remember, is used to grant access to individuals in your organization to perform specific tasks. So let's say now in this organization, now I want Julius to be a reader. So I'll just come here. Where is my text again? I'll just do it here. Julius will be here. So Julius is a reader now. Then the person I want to be the contributor, I can say is Victor. So I'll just come here, just here, specify Victor as a contributor, Victor. Then for the owner now, I can say, okay, I want Yomi to be the owner of this particular resource group. So Yomi. So what it means is that Yomi, Victor, and Julius, they are in the same department. And Yomi, Victor, and Julius, I want them to be able to manage resources in a particular resource group. So this resource group now could be, let's say, application, or let's say virtual machine RG. The name of this resource group could be virtual machine RG. Virtual machine RG. So now what it means is that these guys, their work is to be managing virtual machines in this environment. Julius is a reader. So for Julius to be a reader, maybe he just joined the organization. So we don't just want to make him owner because he doesn't know how the resources are in the environment. Somebody needs to put him through so that he can be able to learn. After a while, then they will now make him either a contributor or an owner. But Victor and Yomi, they already understand the way the environment is. So Yomi now is more or less like the manager because she's the owner of this resource group, meaning all the virtual machine. Yomi can create virtual machine. Yomi can do anything. Victor also can create and do anything. But the difference between the Yomi and Victor is that Yomi can make another person owner because he's the owner. But Victor, since he's a contributor, he can't make another person owner. He can only give somebody reader. He can give somebody reader rights. And so that is how role-based access control work. We are going to be going into the lab section now, so that we are going to see how role-based access control even work in Azure. So I will just minimize this draw in here. Then this is Azure Portal. So now remember, we use the resource group as an example. So I'll go to my resource group here. If you are just joining us for the first time, so the portal we are exploring is Azure. So this training is on cloud computing because we are trying to explain cloud computing and how we are going to get started in the world of cloud computing from the fundamental side of things. So if you are new and you want to log into Azure Portal, you just go to portal.azure.com. We hit enter. So it loads. Because I've already signed in before, or my password is already on the browser, it will just allow me to go. But if I've not signed in before, for sure, it's going to ask me for my name and the likes. Now it's telling me that to enhance security, Microsoft requires MFA. So they are telling me that I should provide MFA, but this account that I'm even using to sign in, this is not the browser that I want to use to sign in. So I'll just minimize this guy. Then this is the browser I want it to go to. So I'll just click on enter and allow it to load. So because that other browser that it took me to, the account there doesn't have a subscription. So if it has a subscription, automatically it will load. But Microsoft is telling me that I should use multi-factor authentication to log in because recently Microsoft did something from their end that if you want to sign into Azure Portal, you have to use multi-factor authentication. What is multi-factor authentication? If you want to sign in with your username and password to your Gmail account or any platform that you use, Once you put only password and it allows you to enter, it means you are using single factor authentication. But if after putting password, it now asks you for another verification, like a code has been sent to your phone, that's double or two-factor authentication. That is MFA. You know, MFA means multi-factor. Multi-factor can also be double factor. So I just don't want us to confuse ourselves. That is what multi-factor authentication is. So now in Azure Portal, as usual, we'll just click on any of our resource. We'll go to resource group. Then from resource group, we all know the resource group that we have been using ever since, which is YAF-RG. So this YAF-RG now, I'm going to give access to people in this subscription so that they can be able to manage resources in this subscription. But before we do that, I would like us to create users, because we used the people we use in our demonstration. We used Julius, Victor, and Yomi. So I will be creating Julius, Victor, and Yomi in my environment so that I can give them access to the virtual machine, to this resource group, so that they can be able to work, since their roles involve them working on that virtual machine. So I'll just minimize this guy. Then now in Microsoft Azure, like, you can manage Microsoft services from Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft have their platform for identity management. When we say identity management, user management, object management, application management, you can use Microsoft Entra ID to manage users, to manage authentication. So right now in Azure Portal, I won't leave Azure Portal. I'll just search for Microsoft Entra ID. So this is Microsoft Entra ID. So Microsoft Entra ID is used to manage identity. Formerly it was Azure AD, but Microsoft now changed the name to Microsoft Entra ID. So we'll just click on Microsoft Entra ID. From Microsoft Entra ID here, once it loads, we are going to see the tenant ID. We are going to see the primary domain. This is my primary domain now. My primary domain is Emmanuel Oyimafu outlook.onmicrosoft.com. This is my primary domain, meaning that if I create a user now, the person wants to log in, it will be Yomi at Emmanuel Oyimafu outlook.onmicrosoft.com. That will be the domain, because that is my default domain, and I only have 5 applications and 5 users. So this is Microsoft Entra ID, where you can create and manage users. You can see here, Microsoft Entra ID has simpler integrated experience for managing all your identities and access management needs. Try the new Microsoft Entra Admin Center. So Microsoft even have a new Microsoft Entra Admin Center. So most times when you log into portals like this, it's good you pay attention to the new notice that you see, because that's what will keep you informed of what's happening. So here now, I'll just collapse manage. So once I collapse manage, I'm going to see everything I can manage with regards using Microsoft Entra ID. You can see that from Microsoft Entra ID, you can manage users, you can manage groups, you can manage external identities. You know, external identities are identities that are not managed by your environment. An external identity can be visitors, contractors that want to do business with your organization. Then we have roles and administrator. So this roles and administrator now is more or less like a role that you can give in Microsoft Entra ID. If I click on it now, you will see several rows there. So if I click on users, let me just click on this one after the other. If I click on users, we are going to see user settings here. So here now you can see that we just have we just have 5 users here. So among these 5 users, we only have 2 members, Peter and Oyimafu Emmanuel. These are the only 2 members we have here. The remaining ones are guests. Abraham is a guest. God's Power is a guest. Oyimafu J. Emmanuel here is a guest. So the only people that are bona fide members of this organization are Peter and Oyimafu. Those are the users. So here, you can reset user password. If you want to reset this guy password now, you can reset his password from the portal here. So most times, if you are working in an organization and you forget your password, you send an email that you forget your password, this is how they do it. They'll just click on your identity here. For this guy now, since it's not in my organization, I can still reset his password. Once you click on reset password here, it automatically reset password. But here you can see this is not the home directory for this guy. So now, if you want to reset password for a user, one thing you need to note is that the person has to be a member of your organization. So if I come back to users here now, I select Peter. If I select Peter now, and I click on reset password, you see, it shows me this user, Peter at Emmanuel.Oyimafu.com will be assigned a temporary password. So if I click on reset, this user now, Peter, will receive a temporary password. Why is he receiving a temporary password? You know that the temporary password now, once he put it, once he enter it, it will now give him the option to change it so that me as the admin, I won't know his password. Because if he keeps using his temporary password, it means that tomorrow I can just log in and have access, which is not supposed to be so. So that is why if you are resetting password in Microsoft Entra ID, you will give the person a temporary password. When they say a password is temporary, the person can just use it once. And once the person uses it, the person must change it to another one so that the admin will not have access to his details or his information. So now that's for users. If we click on groups, for groups now, we are going to be creating users, but I just want to show us how the Microsoft Entra ID portal looks like. Here now, I don't have any group. But if you want to create a group, once you click on new group, it will show you the groups you can create. So if I collapse this group, we have security group, we have Microsoft 365 group. So security group, you can use it to assign permissions to users. Like you can use different membership type. You can say you want the membership type to be assigned. You can say you want to use dynamic membership. So you can always do that. So you remember in Microsoft Entra ID, you can create security and Microsoft 365 group. So here now, once you specify, you can just create. But I will just close, just showing us. Maybe later we can go deep dive on Microsoft Entra ID, how you can use it to manage users. So for roles and administrator now, you will now see different roles that are there. So here now you can see AI administrator, you can see application developer, you can see different roles. All these are roles that you can give with regards role-based, with regards Microsoft Entra ID. So Microsoft Entra ID has their roles, Azure have their roles. So role-based access control now, that one works more with Azure rules, not with Microsoft Entra ID rules. But the reason why I brought us here was because I want to create users. So I don't just want us to, I don't just want everything to just be like magic in our eyes. So in Microsoft Entra ID, you can do a lot of things. You can create administrative units to divide your organization into several units so that if, for instance, you want some admin to be able to manage some set of unit, you can do that. So let's not confuse ourselves much. Let's just go to users. So we can just create the users we want to create, which is, let me check those users we are creating. We are creating 3 users, which is Julius, Victor, and Yomi. So I'll just come here, click on new, create new user. Then the user principal name now will be Victor. I'll just say Victor. So Victor now will be the user principal name, meaning that if Victor wants to log in, the username will be victor at emmanuel.oyimafu.outlook.com. Then the nickname will also be Victor. Then the display name here, I will now put it Victor Ewefu. So then the password. So you can see the password is automatically generated, like autogen. If I don't want it to be autogen, I will uncheck this, then I'll now put the password by myself. But best practice is good you allow Microsoft Entra ID to automatically generate password for you, except if in your organization you guys have default password you use. Those of us that work in organization, there are some organization that they already have password they use, like maybe some their password is like maybe it's Azure 123 or Microsoft 145. That's their default password. So once you tell the admin that your password, you are forgetting your password, they'll just tell you, oh yeah, I've changed it, try default. Once you just put Microsoft 12345, it goes, then it tell you to put a new password. So that's how it works also. So now I'm going to use automatically generate password. Then account enabled. So if I uncheck this, it means that the account will be disabled. But if I check this, it means that the account will be enabled. Then I will go to next. So here now you can put first name. The first name will be Victor. Victor, right? Victor. Then the second name will be Y4. Maybe. Okay, I didn't spell the name very well. Y left 4. So now user type is a member. So job title, let me say Victor now. The job title is, what's his role again in that in our analysis? So Victor is a contributor. So I'll just say job title virtual machine contributor. So Victor now is a virtual machine contributor in this organization. So the company name is YAF. Let's say YAF Global. So then his department is IT, information technology. So that is his department, information technology. Employee ID, everything will be here. If he has a manager, let me say I had a manager. Let me make myself his manager. So for manager now, I'll just select myself here as his manager. So I'm just using myself as your manager. I'm not your manager in real life, but it's just like we just want to like show how we do all this. So now the office location, you can put it here. If his office is in maybe number 54, Idiroko, Idiroko Road, Ota. So you put it like this. That's his address. So street address, you can put it contact info. You can put his email. You can put all these things. Then we'll just review and create. Review and create. So now we have created one user, Victor. So we are going to be creating the other two users, which is Julius and Yomi. So we'll create Julius once this one is done creating. Now, if I refresh this page, I'm going to see Victor. We have Victor, a while for here, and he's a member. So if I click on new again, there was something I did not explain the other time. If you click on new, you have create a new internal user in your organization, and you have invite external user. So this external user now, look at it here. Invite an external user to collaborate with your organization, meaning that the person is coming from outside. He just wants to collaborate with your organization. But we are creating a new user because Julius is in the organization. So I will just say Julius. Julius. Then for the display name will be Julius Musa. Julius Musa. Then password, I will leave it auto generation. Then next, properties. The first name I will give it Julius. Then the second name I will give him Musa. Then he's a member. Then job title, virtual machine reader. So it's just a reader. A reader means you can only see, but you can't do anything. Yeah, that's just what a reader is. So the company is YAF Global, and its unit is information technology, office address number 54, Idiroko Road. I'll just click on review and create. So if I come to assignment is more or less like maybe you want to assign him to a group or a role. So assigning somebody to a group is more or less like maybe for instance, IT, they have their own group where all the members there are IT. So you can assign him to a group so that if there are maybe resources that have permission, if there are resources that that group have permission to, the Julius will also have permission, but we are not actually doing that. So we'll just click on review and create, then click on create. Now we have created Julius. It's remaining one person, which is Yomi. So we'll go ahead and create Yomi. So I'll just click on new, then create a new user. Then name here will be Yomi. Then the display name will be Yomi Balogun. Yomi Balogun. So Yomi Balogun now is his display name. I'll do next. Then first name, I'll say Yomi. Yomi. Then last name will be Balogun. Then he's also a member. Job title, Yomi now is the owner. Let's say virtual machine owner. So Yomina is the owner. So if I come to company name here, YAF Global. So same office address, because all of them are in the same office, review and create. Then create. So now we have created 3 users, which is Victor, Julius. If I refresh now, we'll see Yomi. So Yomi is there. Let's not forget that Microsoft Entra ID is where you manage users in your environment. So if I click on Microsoft Entra ID again now, you are going to see the same settings that we have. So Microsoft Entra ID is used to manage users, groups, external identity, everything you can see here. You can use Microsoft Entra ID to manage it. You can use it to manage external identities, delegated admin partners, enterprise applications, devices, app registration, identity governance, application proxy. So Microsoft Entra ID is a very powerful tool that, as it is like this, it's a job, it's a what are they calling? It's a job of its own. There are some people that their expertise is Microsoft Entra ID. They know Microsoft Entra ID very well. They can do all these. They can do enterprise application. They can do app registration. They can do application proxy. They can do cross tenant, custom domain name, and all these things. They are not really hard. It's something that if you want to learn within 2 weeks, you can learn, or 1 month, you can learn everything about Microsoft Entra ID. So a Microsoft Entra ID now is somebody that manage identity. You know how to manage identity very well. So we'll come back to portal.azure.com. So now this brings us to the topic of the day. We want to create role-based access control. So why did I create those users? It's because we want to use them as tests. We want to give them access to this virtual machine RG. And the resource group we are using is YAF. Is YAF resource group. So if I go back to resource group now, I'll now come down. I'll select YAF Cloud Computing because that's the name of the resource group. So on YAF Cloud Computing now, if I want to give access to anybody to this resource group, I will select access control, which is IAM. IAM means identity and access management. Let's not forget identity and access management. So this is where you can give roles. So if I click on IAM now, remember I'm on the resource group, meaning that those guys, the only permission they will have will be on this resource group, not on the subscription. Meaning that if they log in, they will only have access to this particular resource group, not the subscription. So now that we are here, I will just come here, click on role assignments here. So this particular resource group now, what I did was, from overview here, you will see all the resources that are in this resource group. So the next thing you will do is to click on access control. Let's not forget IAM, identity and access management. That is where you can use, that's what you can use to configure role-based access control. So if you are just joining the meeting, please mute your mic. So here now we'll click on role assignment. So once we click on role assignment, we are going to see those that have assigned roles in this particular RG. So we can see here, Abraham has contributor. Then Oyimafu here has contributor. Then a service principal here, Azure CLI, has contributor. So you can give permission using service principal. Maybe for instance, you want to authenticate to Azure. So most times they will give you a code that you put on the browser. So once you put it on the browser, it gives the Azure CLI access to your subscription. So as it is now, we have seen those that have access, which is role assignment. So now, if I want to give somebody role now we have seen those. When we say role assignments, like that is those that have rights to do anything in this resource group. Abraham has rights. Oyimafu has rights. Oyimafu at hashem.com has rights. Then this guy also have rights, which is this service principal. Now I want to add other people to have rights to this particular resource group. So I'll just click on roles here. So once I click on roles, now we have different roles here that we can select. Remember, if I come back here, I want Julius to be a reader. So I'll just come here. I'll type for virtual machine so that I will have rules particular to virtual machine. So now, once I type, I will just maximize this guy so that I can see rows here. So now we have virtual machine user login, virtual machine contributor, then virtual machine administrator, then dev lab user. So as it is here now, Victor now, we have no, let me look for any read role that I can give him. Read. So here now we have reader. So what this reader means is that it can view all resources but does not allow him to make any change. So I'll just click on it here. Then I'll select it in the settings below. So now that I've clicked on reader, I'll just select it here. Then so this is the reader role. It allows him to view all resources but not make any change. So now let me come here so that I can add role assignments. So here now, I will now select reader from here, from add role assignments. Then since I've selected reader, I'll just say next. Then here now, where we have assign access to, you can see here we have users, groups, or service principal. So this is where I'm now going to add Julius, who is even the, okay, Julius as the reader. So I'll just come here and select member. Then I will look for Julius here. This is Julius Musa. I'll just select Julius Musa and say select. So automatically now Julius Musa has read access to this particular resource group. So I'll now click on next. I'll click on review and assign. So once I click on review and assign, automatically Julius has that read permission to the resource group. So when we are done adding it, if I come back to role assignment again, we now see reader Julius Musa, and the Julius Musa have access to just this resource. Sure, we can see Abraham have access to the subscription. He's a contributor. He have contributor access to the subscription. Oyimafu has contributor access to the subscription, but Julius have access to only this resource. Sure, you can see how you can use role-based access control to give people permission based on their job functions, even in a resource group level. Now, his own access is resource group, just this resource. So Julius doesn't have access to the subscription because I don't want to give him access to the subscription. So now we are going to be adding another role again. So I'll click on add, then say role assignment. So the next one now I'm adding is for Victor, which is contributor. So I'll just come here and type, let's say virtual machine so that we can get role relating to virtual machine. Then I will now come down and select virtual machine contributor and click next. So the same thing we did. Manage, you can assign the group to user, group, or service principal, or even manage identity. So I'll just select member, then look for Victor and say select. Then I'll now click on review and assign. So once we review and assign, Victor will now have access to the Victor will now have rights also, like the other people. So we can see Victor now, he has virtual machine contributor, which means Victor can do tasks relating to virtual machine in this particular resource. Let's take note of the scope. Scope is the rights where the person has rights on. So this person now, Abraham has rights on the subscription, but Victor only have access to this resource. That's what we have here. We are only giving them access to a resource group, just one resource group, not the entire subscription. So I'll now minimize. Then I'll come here. We'll now do for the last person, which is Yomi. So we'll come here and go to add role assignment. Then we will now look for owner. Let's say owner. So let's see. something close that we can give to Victor. Let's say virtual machine enclave owner. No, I don't want to give him that one. So you can even see what the person can do basically from the job functions here. So now let me type virtual machine. Let me look for a more classic role that I can give him. So there's no owner here. So what we'll do it now is this. You know that we have two roles. We have job function here. We have job functions and we have privilege administrator role. So this privilege administrator role, that is where everything is. Like privilege administrator role, no be small thing. No. Job functions is more or less like you are giving the person the role according to his job functions. Like there are some organizations in the US that if they're employing you, your work is just specific. You'll not be doing everything. You can be employed as this is what you will only be doing, contributor of an application group. That's all. Your work is just to be contributing to application group, nothing more. But most times in our own country, it's not like that. You'll be doing a lot of things. So now, privilege identity administrator now is more or less like is like a very big one. Oh. So grant privilege administrator access such as ability to assign rules to other users. So anybody here can assign rules to other users. So if we maximize this guy now, we are going to see something here. So you can see what each person can do. So owner, grant full access to manage your resources, including the ability to assign rules in Azure Role-Based Access Control. This guy now, contributor, grant full access to manage all resources, but does not allow you to assign rules in Azure Role-Based Access Control. Remember, I was saying something like this the other time. If you are the owner, you can give other people rules. You can assign rules to other people, but as a contributor, you can't. You can manage your resources like the owner, but you cannot allow you cannot assign rules to any other person. You can manage assignments in Azure Blueprints, but you can't give another person a rule. So now we are making Yomi the owner. So it's a very high privilege role. We have other roles here: AI onboarding, Azure File Sync administrator, and all. So we'll just do next. So these are privilege identity role. This one now doesn't have anything to do with job function because you have like the highest role, like a manager also. So we'll do next. Then we'll now select the member here, which is Yomi. So we'll just select Yomi Balogun, then select. Then we do next. Then now we can see, you see that this one now can get another settings. For members, for the other ones that are just job roles, it doesn't have condition. Now, what can the user do? Allow user to only assign selected roles to selected service principal, or allow user to assign rules except privileged administrator rule. So most times this one is the best because even as an owner, you can still see what the person can do or what the person cannot do as an owner. So now we are trying to say, okay, this person, even with an owner, you're only allowed to assign all rules except privileged rules such as owner and role-based access control, meaning that this person, even as an owner, you can't give another person an owner. You can't give another person a contributor because it's privileged access rule. You can only give job functions rules like virtual machine contributor, AI administrator, and the likes. So this one is better. So this one now, allow user to assign all roles. No, it's not good to do this one. No. So that's just it. Then we'll do next and do review and create. So now we have successfully used role-based access control to define access to our resource group. So all these guys here now that you see here, Yomi Balogun is an owner. He's an owner, but his own scope is this resource group. Abraham and these guys have more power than Balogun because Abraham have access to the subscription itself, but Yomi only have access to just this resource group. So that is how you can use role-based access control to manage rights to resource group. So we are done with role-based access control. Now we are now going to look at resource lock in Microsoft Azure. When I'm done, I'm going to give room for questions. So just if you have any question, You can drop it on the chat so you don't forget. You can just wait. Then later, we are going to talk about it. So now, we are talking about resource lock. So what is resource lock? So somebody's mic is not muted. If your mic is not muted, please mute your mic. You are causing distraction. So as it is here now, we are going to be talking about resource lock in Microsoft Azure. So what is resource lock? So a lock means you just like, for instance, you don't want people to have access to delete any resource group. So you can use lock. Once you add lock to a resource group, somebody cannot delete it. Once you apply lock to in a subscription, it means that even the individual resources in that subscription, it will prevent you from deleting it. For instance, now in an organization where you have thousands of people working, you can apply a lock to the subscription level. Because if you apply a lock to the subscription, it affects everything in the resources. Just like this guy now that have rights to the subscription, he can manage anything in the environment. He has the right to manage anything, not just only the resource group itself. All these ones, they are highly privileged guys. They can do a lot of things in the environment. So here now, we are now going to use resource lock, but I'm only going to lock this resource group because I don't want anybody to be able to delete this resource group in the future. God forbid, they may sack somebody. Maybe they sack Azure CLI. Azure CLI may be angry like, I'm going to delete the resources. I'm going to delete everything. Azure CLI, if there's no resource lock to prevent accidental deletion, Azure CLI can just go and delete everything from the environment. So for you to do resource lock, if you want to lock a resource from the resource group level, just like the way we have here, you come down to the resource group, you select resource group, you come down to the resource group that you want to lock. Then once you click on it, you go to settings. You collapse settings here. Then from settings, you click on lock. So once you click on lock, it's going to give you options that you can. So for lock now, you can see that this resource has no lock. So if I click on add, it's going to give me two options, read only or delete. So it depends on the one you want to do. So if you click on delete, it means that you are locking this resource group from accidental deletion. So I'm going to call this group YAF lock, meaning that I'm locking it. Nobody can delete it. So the note I'm going to give here is that why are you why are you trying to delete this resource group? What is your gain? So that's the lock. That's the note I want to give. That is, if the person tried to delete it, the person will see this note, like, what is your gain? Why are you trying to delete this? So you click OK. So now we have assigned the lock. So after that, we are going to test deleting it, we are going to test deleting a resource in this resource group. Now we have locked these resources now. So let me come to overview so that I'm going to see things that are in this resource group. What can I risk to delete? Let me risk deleting this NIC that is here. So if I click on this checkbox here and I click on this three dots here, I say delete. Let's see if it's going to delete. So to confirm delete, they say I should type delete. So I'm going to type delete. Let's see if it's going to delete. They say deleting the selected resources and their internal data is permanent action and cannot be undone. You see, some people, if they want to delete, they will read all these things, but because they don't have conscience, they will still go ahead. So I'm putting myself in that shoes. I don't have conscience. So you can see here, it's preventing you. There's an error. YAF app server, the scope subscription cannot perform delete operation because the following scope are locked. Please remove the lock and try again. You see this now. I cannot delete this because it's locked. So that's the same way if a bad actor that is trying to leave an organization and say, okay, I want to delete, because you are not the one that put the lock, you cannot unlock it. You understand? Because you are not the one that lock it. You can't go and say, okay, because you are leaving, you now go and remove the lock, you now delete it. Because most times, if the organization is well structured, you're not supposed to just give anybody owner. It's supposed to be the owner of the company, the IT manager, that is supposed to be the owner. So other people, they can just have job function role. So even with your job function role, you can't delete because the resource is locked. So that is just a way of practicing resource lock. So you can see you can't delete anything. So that's for resource lock. It helps you lock your resources to prevent accidental deletion. So it's very important you lock your resources. If you're working in an environment and their resources is not locked, tell them about the importance of locking resources to prevent accidental deletion. So the next thing we are going to talk about is tagging. So after talking about tagging, we'll end the class for today. We'll end the class for today because I don't want us to like, okay, the information to be too much, should be too much on us. So we are going to talk about tagging as it relates to Microsoft Azure. Like I made mention the other time, tagging is used to tag resources. You can use it to tag resources. But before we do that, we are going to create a policy that enforces tagging on on resources. So in this case, I'm going to start with creating a policy. Although I plan to do a more a more bigger class on Azure Policy, on Azure Policy. So let me just talk about let's do policy. Okay, let's search policy because we want to see how we can enforce tagging. So we'll just click on policy here. So policy now as it is, our church have their policy. There are some things you cannot do. They can say if you are in choir, you should wear long skirts. You should not wear short skirts because if you wear short skirts, it's not good. That's it. So in Azure too, you can do policy like if you want to create any resource and you are using a particular location, no, don't allow it. That's just one use case of policy. So now for policy here, we are going to collapse authoring here. So for authoring, we are going to see assignments. So if I click on definitions now, we are going to view several definitions here in terms of Azure. So we'll just wait for it to load. So we can see different definitions here. So we can see them here. Audit policy. You can see deploy Microsoft Defender for endpoints. This is the policy that once you set it, it will enforce Microsoft Defender for endpoints, and any resource that doesn't have it, it will flag it as non-compliant. That is an advantage of Azure Policy. So I just want to do something. So we'll be using Azure Policy to enforce tagging. So basically, so I wanted to filter by category. So if I filter by category, we'll go to virtual machines, prevent use of Postgres, prevent use of Microsoft SQL database. So now let's even go on with the lab. So once you click on assignments now, so these are definitions that you can specify. Once you click on assignments, you can assign a policy. So from assignments here, I'll click on assign policy so that I will just pick a policy from this definition and assign it. So I'll just click on assign policy. Then from assign policy, I will now click on the scope. So the scope now, you can break down the scope to select what you want. So for the scope, I'm going to scope it only to a particular resource group. I'm not going to do it for all my resource group. I will just apply it only to YAF Cloud Computing. So I'll click on select, meaning that this policy will not apply to all the resource group in my environment. It will only apply to YAF Cloud Computing. So we'll now come down and select the policy definition that we want. So the policy definition that we want now, we'll search for tag. Search for tag. Let me click on these three dots. So this three dot now, once I click on it, it will show me all the policies that we have here. So if I click on tag now, let me see policies that has to do with tag. So we can see From tag here, inherit a tag from a resource group if missing. So which of them are we selecting? So we are selecting require a tag and its value on the resources. So we'll just come here, select require a tag and a value on its resources. Let's see. So require a tag, not inherit a tag. So it will be here. So require a tag on resources. So that's the one we want. Require a tag and its value. The one we even want is require a tag and its value on a resource group. On a resource. Let's look for the one that require a tag on resource group, require a tag and its value on resource group. So we'll use this one. Require a tag and its value on resource group. So once I select it, what it means is that automatically we are actually assigning a tag to that particular resource group. We're assigning a policy. So this policy now means that any resources in that particular resource group, it will require a tag and its value on the resource group, meaning that it's just like a policy that resources there that doesn't have tag, it will flag them as non-compliant. I'll just click on add. Then this is the assignment. Then the other part, which is require tag and its value, we have already selected it. Then we'll just review. We'll go to parameters. So in parameters now, the tag name, you can specify the name of the tag. So the name now, I will call it YAF. YAF. Then YAF global as the value. Or let me say YAF global, sure. So after selecting YAF global, then we'll click on create. So we can just go ahead and create the resources. So we'll create. So now we have used Azure Policy to enforce tag. You know that what Azure Policy is more or less like in Lagos State now. If, for instance, they say people should not drive 80, people should not pass maybe 80 speed limit on Third Mainland Bridge. You know, people will still be doing it until when you put a camera there to be capturing people that are doing it. So that camera there is more or less like policy in this state. So now we are setting this policy require a tag and its value on resource group. So that is one assignment we have created. And remember, it only applies to CU.YAF.CLOUD. It only applies to YAF resource group, not to the entire subscription. So now I'm going to go ahead and create the resources. Let's see if it's going to work on that particular YAF ROG. But I want us to note something. So it can take up to 30 minutes to take effect. So it doesn't mean that because you created it now, it will just start working. Most times policy takes time to take effect. So now, but let's just understand. But next week, I'm still going to break this policy down so that everybody will understand. Let's just wait till next week, or next week we are going to talk about it more. So now, if we want to test this policy if it's working, I'll come to this my resource group here. Since we assign the policy to YAF Cloud Computing, so it means that any resource I want to create in this subscription, it must require a tag. If there's no tag, it will not create. That's just the meaning of that particular policy we created to enforce tag. Why am I using policy to enforce it? Because I know that if I tell people with mouth, if you are creating any resource, tag it to, some people will not. They will say they forget. So because of that, I'm doing it so that even if you forget, it will not work until you go back and create it. So enforcement of policy is more or less like maybe church is saying that people should mind the dressing they wear. And somebody is at the gate that if you come and you dress wrongly, they will send you away. So that is more or less like a policy, because now telling people with mouth is not enough, but you must be strict to ensure that that policy is followed. That's policy in Azure. That's what Azure Policy can do for you. So now let me try to create a storage account. Let me see if the policy has taken effect. So I'll just search for, let me search for storage account here. Storage account, then click on storage account, then say create. So I just want to test if our policy is working. So since we apply the policy to YAF Cloud Computing, I'll select it. I'll select it. So then I'll just come down, give it a name. I'll just give the policy, yeah, global. Then I'll leave the remaining settings. I'll just do next. Let me see if there's no thing there that is going to consume much, because I'll be deleting it immediately. Data protection. Let me see. Do next. Encryption. Leave it this way. Do next. Again. Leave it this way. Do next. Okay. So let me see if it's going to work, because remember, we created a tag to prevent any resource that you are creating. What we did was that the tag must have a name, and the name of the tag will be YAF. Then the value will be YAF global. So as it is now, let me just review and create. Let's see if it's going to work. So validation is supposed to fail, but validation pass. Remember, most of these tags, it takes 30 minutes for it to work, to take effect. So since next week, we are going to be talking about Azure Policy full time. Then I'm not going to come back to test it again to see if it has started working. So that will be the end of our class for today. Yeah, thank you very much for listening, and thank you for paying rap attention. God bless everybody. So if you have any question, you can ask.